Enchanté race fans, and welcome along. This is, of course, the Creator Series iRacing edition, and we're in the summer splash of what has been some incredible Grand Prix so far, and hopefully we're going to see something very, very similar this evening, because we continue our journey across the United States this evening to a circuit that has been on and off in multiple aspects of motorsport for 50 years now. First introduced back in 1975, runs still to this day. It is, I would say, an iconic and legendary circuit. We head over to Long Beach, very technical, very challenging. It will provide a very interesting dynamic, racing dynamic, endurance dynamic as well for a lot of the drivers that have signed up today. It should be an absolute cracker in your virtual commentary box for this evening's action. Myself, Tom Wilson, I'm here for the first time on the iRacing broadcast. Very, very excited to sink my teeth into this one, and it is the legend of the Creator Series scene. It is John Harris alongside me. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing all right. This was going to be just an absolute thriller, I think. What a track, what a car to take on this legendary status, as you said, with just this track being a development across the years, really. Multiple layouts, multiple incidents, and indeed victors across the years. However, one thing remains true, is this is one of the most difficult street circuits I think they've made, with all of those bumps, especially into turn one. I'm sure we'll see no troubles there whatsoever today.
Yeah, not just into turn one as well. Track very, very challenging, going to provide such a technical aspect and a technical challenge for a lot of the drivers that are going to be competing today. Very first of all, though, we're going to jump straight into an interview, because Aerotech is over at the iRacing headquarters. Aerotech, hello, my friend. How are you doing? We've got many questions to get to you today, but first of all, how are you liking the setup, and how much are you looking forward to getting underway this evening?
It's different. Obviously, it's way different than what I have at home. The rig's a bit more serious. The equipment's a bit more serious. I've never really used load cell pedals before, so instead of just putting your foot on the brake, I feel like I have to and put my whole back into it. But it's been fun. I did a couple practice laps yesterday in between broadcasts, and it seems on the timing board too, we're kind of in the ballpark, which I wasn't expecting. So it's been fun to get used to, and obviously being where I am is kind of surreal at the end of the day, considering what we're doing and how we're doing it.
How much pressure is there from the staff being able to watch you race, for example? You feel eyes in the back of your head?
I don't know if you can see my camera, but the back wall behind me is all just glass. So, I mean, if I know the broadcast team is got nothing to do till 6 o'clock, so there's nothing stopping them from coming to just be the peanut gallery behind me here. So, I don't know. I think our job here is always as it is just to put on a good show and have some fun, and not necessarily go fast and be fast. But I did make fun of my colleague Chris Leone this morning for finishing pretty poor in the truck race, so I'm assuming I'll get it back from him if we don't do something interesting today.
I want to ask you what we're expecting from the circuit. Technical circuit, challenging circuit, potential for a lot of mistakes to be made by a number of the drivers involved today. How are you feeling the dynamic is going into it, and what are you mainly hoping and expecting to come from the race?
The car track combo is fun, but very difficult. This car doesn't stop. It does not steer. The tires take 4 laps to warm up. It drives great, and then the tires are hot, and then it drives difficult again. We have to survive turn one. People are going to have to back up their braking point in the first lap, and I have a strong feeling that's not going to happen. We have to survive the hairpin to get to the start-finish to get there, and then right after that's the fountain. So this track's super unforgiving, very bumpy, especially with a car that likes to wiggle around a lot on power. There is TC, but there's only so much it can do. So it is probably, I mean, I wasn't here for Monza, but I would say in terms of driving, this is probably the most difficult car track combo on the schedule so far.
And in terms of overtaking, what does that mean? Because street circuit, quite difficult to overtake, but the possibility of having drivers making mistakes there, does that mean it's sort of a medium overtaking track? What's your analysis?
There's a couple good zones going into the Formula Drift sections, a good place to dive, but then you have the big straightaway after, right? So it's like you got to just pick your points. I think the biggest thing is just committing. On a lot of regular circuits, you can kind of stick the nose out and kind of hope for something to happen. If you're going to go for an overtake, you just have to go for it. You can't second guess yourself and kind of hope it sticks. But like you said too, there is walls on other sides. If you go a bit deep, the consequences are pretty severe. But hey, that's Long Beach in a nutshell.
Aerotech, thank you very much for speaking to us. We will let you get on your way, get practice, and get ready for our qualifying session. We wish you the best of luck, my friend.
Thank you. I'm going to need it. Gonna need it.
Cheers, mate. Very interesting, the discussion points there. The car combo, the circuit combo, going to provide such a challenge to all other drivers. Championship, though, it's been a challenge for anyone whose name isn't Kamikaze. Sizable lead at the top of the timing charts, the top of the standings, I should say. 1,424 points. Pretty tightly contested behind. Less than, 39 points separating Stranzer in 5th and Adrian Pole in 2nd position. Eritate, who we just spoke to, nestled there in P6, not too far off the top 5. Alex Gillen, Zuma Prev TV, Ansel Office, and Matt 212 rounding out your top 10. John, you've been on all the broadcasts for the iRacing so far this season. I want to get your thoughts on if there's anyone in particular that stood out for you, or maybe someone that you would have expected a little bit more from.
Well, I didn't expect Kamikaze to just clear off into the distance with a bit of a points gap. I will say he's had a few lucky moments this season, so it could, sway the way of someone else. But obviously, the rest of the top 5, the common theme is just incidents in one or multiple races. So people like Aiden Pole, he's been really at the top of the standings on most races, if not all of them, and he's just got so unlucky sometimes. And the win will be very reassuring for him last time out, and that may be the start of a change, let's say, in the breeze, as we like to put it in the UK.
Wow. Should be an absolutely fascinating one. We'll see what the makeup of the standings looks like when we come to the end of our race. Qualifying is kicked off. They're already 30 seconds into our 15-minute session. If you are new here, first of all, where have you been? Pour from yourself, but this should be a very enthralling session. 15 minutes for the drivers to get into their qualifying session. Get the rhythm, get the flow of this circuit. You've got to be incredibly precise, incredibly accurate. Undulating corners, off-camber corners, a lot of bumps in there as well. It'll just drag you into a mistake every now and then. It's going to be a true test for a lot of our drivers. Championship leader, who we're just looking at there, cutting back to the driver that sits second in the standings as well. And I think it's going to be important to try and find some confidence early in this qualifying session. You don't want to leave yourself under pressure, especially at a circuit like this that really bites when you get it ever so slightly wrong.
Yeah, you have to stay alert on a street circuit, as they say, and it's just the case of treating the walls with a bit of respect, really. You've got to leave a bit of a gap for qualifying not to... Well, there you go, off in the background. I'm not exactly sure who that was, a little bit far away. Elzindriani has a reset to the pit lane, just spinning on to the back straight there, so unfortunate for them between turn 8 and turn 9. So unfortunate there. We've got Aerotech racing from iRacing HQ there, who will be wanting to put on a good performance. Then we've got Mr. Ollie in in car 37 with that lovely livery. Lots of different colours. I do love to see that, because from a commentator's perspective, it's a lot easier that way.
Much easier to identify certain drivers, basically coming in for the very first time. Cutting the beam to start his first qualifying lap of the session. We're going to really see now how challenging turn 1 is. Bumpy as you go into the braking zone. Car really wanted to step out. Hyperstar also getting underway as well in the 10 car. Someone very close behind, getting a lovely little draft as we head down into the very first braking zone. Got to be careful though, you don't get caught up behind the driver in front. Curbs as well. We haven't spoken too much about the curbs around this track, but you've got to be very precise, laser-like precision, one might say, with how you attack these curbs. Some of them really aggressive. They can spit you off into the barriers, the waiting barriers that are lining this street circuit. Or if you just take them a little bit too casually, they can be quite slippery as well.
Joshua's a driver that's gotten really unlucky the past 2 races or so. I think he might be stopping on track and going back to pit lane. Yeah, we've got Matt 2 as well in the pits, but that is looking like a lovely Oreo livery as far as I could tell right there. So some interesting decisions there. Got Blueberry in car 41, a great result last time out, but different conditions now. And as you said with the curbs, you've got to attack the curbs, but it's not easy for a qualifying lap, because there's no choice. You've got to find the time out there, and it's just one of those cases of risk versus reward in the race. So you've got to change your strategy between quali and the race, and that can be really difficult. Lovely to see there Chesnoid with the red livery there for Ferrari. Lovely stuff, and I think that's a direct replica of the F1 livery currently.
Yes, repping the scarlet. Lap time's already coming in. Aiden Pole sitting atop the timing charts at the moment, 1 minute 19.1, nearly half a second clear of our championship leader Kamikaze in the 16 car. Only 2 drivers separated by a second. Brandon Hyperstar in P3, 1.4 seconds off the outright pace early on. Here comes Sparks up to the line, slots into position number 4 for the 65, just by 400ths of a second clear of Strasner in P5 for the car number 5. And here is Chesnoid Gaming rounding that final corner. Oh boy, it's going to be an important corner in the race, isn't it? Zoomer TV up into P3. Slots just 3/4 of a second off the time set by Aidan Pole. And Ches cutting the beam. What is it going to be? I think he is towards the bottom. Yes, 22.1, just ahead of Basic Ollie there.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate with the lap times there. I think a mistake just off of our cameras that we might not have seen. Aerotech there leaving a little bit to be desired on the exit into Indy turn, but here into the hairpin, a very tight line. Difficult on traction control is what the drivers were talking about. There's only so much that it can do over the bumps, so if you're trying to be so aggressive, you will overheat the tires. So it's very, very sort of tactical racing you have to do. When you push, when you decide to attack, and in qualifying, how many laps you can do on the tyres before you have to call it quits and come in for a fresh set, or indeed just to cool them down and do a cooling lap. So it'll be very interesting to see. But Aidan Pole at the moment still 0.5 of a second ahead of everybody else, as Grand Prix currently P9 with a 22.0 flat. Let's see if he can improve that across the line. We'll have to wait and see just a second or two. Looks like it will be a decent improvement, 20.2. So that's nearly 2 seconds, 2 full seconds rammed in that lap. Lovely stuff. And that moves them. We have not had an... Oh, it does. P9. Actually says P9 still. So big gap at the rear, it seems, in terms of consistency.
Yeah, Super Noodle Bagel slots into 14th on a 24/7. We'll be looking to improve that as the session progresses. Already a third of the way through. Absolutely flies by. Aerotech and now Blueberry managing to split Pole and Kamikaze inside the top 4. A lot of drivers improving on their second and or third attempts in this session. Kamikaze now right to the top of the timing charts, and by some tune as well. First driver into the 1 minute 18, 1:18.5. Pole follows in 1:18.6. It is Kamikaze that takes the high ground at the moment. Times continue to come in thick and fast. Matt 2-on-2 holding 10th at the moment. James Early coming through the final couple of corners now, midway through the lap in the middle sector. It's like a decent first lap for James Early so far in the number 50s. Brennan Hyperstar now slots up into position number 3, top 3 covered by just over 0.6 of a second. James Early will be looking to get a decent bank lap on the board here. Alex Gillen out on the circuit as well. His bank lap wasn't that impressive.
Shame for Blueberry just a few seconds ago. I was watching their split timer, or indeed their delta timer, and it looked like they were on a lap that could challenge Kamikaze there, but just made a mistake, I think, in the middle sector of this lap. So James Early 21.1 at the moment, which will slot them into P13 at the moment. Not ideal, but hey, you've got to start somewhere and get a lap in on the board. This track is a relatively short lap still, I would expect. Oh, someone going straight on there in turn 1. They've decided they cannot make that. Simple way to do it is just go straight on at the first turn. Otherwise, you'll be eating the wall on that entry, and very easy to do, and very cautious, at least in qualifying, to not do that.
Yeah, not sure who it was, but big tank slapper under braking over the bumps. Kamikaze lowering the benchmark even further. 1:18.4. Alex Gillen up into P8 and Matt 2-on-2 up into P10 respectively. Here's Basic Ollie for his second attempt of this session, round turn number 11, the final on this circuit. He's going to be charging towards the line now, maybe a little bit too far back to get any meaningful draft. He's going to cut the beam. P16, what does it become as he crosses the line? Stays P16, no, up into P6. Big improvement by nearly 3 seconds. 1:19.2, getting himself in amongst the top drivers.
Yeah, it's starting to bring the gaps down now, so we've got a very, huge amount of people in the 119s at the moment. So we've got all the way from Zupreme down in P4 down to Matt's 2-1-2 in P12. Just been ousted by James Early into P11 there, so a lot of people improving right now. Grand Prix Bear really just, I think, a little bit overstepping the mark in terms of grip, it must be said. He's very aggressive on the throttle, which is what you need to be with this car, but that traction control is somewhat temperamental sometimes. And you can see the rear of the car sliding a lot, and you lose time every single time that rear is sliding because the traction control won't allow you to get that maximum horsepower and to just get out of the corner. So a very technical car to drive, and as we have a new fastest lap, Aidan Pole 18.1. Now that is something right there.
Yeah, they keep trading blows out in front. Purple lap times being exchanged by Pole and by Kamikaze. Pole holding at the moment, like you said, with a 1:18.1. Kamikaze's been through the pit lane. Brennan Hyperstar currently P5. And I think just going again now, yes, 1:23.1. Basic Ollie up into P4. Good improvements again. We're seeing some decent pace from Basic Ollie. Only 3/4 of a second off the benchmark set by pole with just over 6 minutes of our qualifying session to go. Supreme rounding the final couple of corners and going very, very wide there, in fact, into turn number 11, trying to give himself the straightest run out of turn number 11 to blast it down the main straight that does have a curve in it to get himself going for his next attempt.
According to my delta here, Aidan Poll is 1.6 seconds up on his lap right now. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but if that is the case, if that delta is true, we are about to see a mega time right now. Losing a little bit in these last 2 turns, but he's got to keep it. Oh, he's gone for another lap there, so he's gone wide. But is this delta true? Is he going to set alight the timing boards? It doesn't look like it, so it would have been a good lap. He just messed up that last turn. I think he just decided to go again, and he thinks there's more time in it. So Aidan Poll at the moment looks like he is on a flyer and consistent every single time. Alex Gillen as well across the line. And P3 now, so that is a great lap. Yeah, 18.6 for Alex Gillen, demonstrating that these GT3 type cars are definitely his forte on iRacing.
Gets himself into a really strong position there. Improvements still coming in. Supreme improved by 7/10 per second. Matt 2-on-2 finding some time as well on their lap time. Here's Els in the purple car coming into sector 3 now. Just started down in 17th at the moment, slowest driver we have so far, but is finding a decent chunk of time. We're hoping to try and pick up a few places as they negotiate the penultimate corner. And the last one will just be pulling gears, blasting it, planting that right foot into the floor of your Ferrari car as we cut the beam. Will this be an improvement? Will it see them jump up the timing charts? You have to wait an age for you to cut the beam. As we do so, will it be an improvement for Els? Waiting for it to come through. Has improved, says by about 0.2 per second, but staying down in P17.
Yeah, 1:21.8. The next time for P16 is a 20.5, so that's 1.3 seconds up they need to be. Although they're 1.2 seconds adrift on this lap. They had a slow turn 1, I think it was, so maybe the tyres going off a little bit. Sparks, who is currently P9, looking to improve, but they're lighting up the tyres, and I think you can hear the traction loss there on acceleration. I think they've cooked the tyres. They might want to come in if they may have time, may not have time to warm up the tyres now at this point. But yeah, a very strategic thing in qualifying. Let's see into turn 1. Is there grip left? It looks like it's okay still, but on that traction you can see so tentative, so tricky, and the fountain section here, incredibly iconic. Hasn't always been part of the track. A recent addition, if I remember correctly, in the early 2000s when the developments that you can see around the circuit really kicked off. So this track has known multiple layouts and hits the wall. That's not going to be good. I think that's automatic invalidation of the lap, and indeed it won't help by giving a bit of damage to the car either. Just wanted to answer your question from earlier, because you were asking me, Tom, what drivers I think had surprised me the most, and now I do have a definitive answer for it. I will go with Blueberry, who made their debut with us last week and finished P3. Really, really impressive performance. But I'll also go with Matt 2-on-2. Definitely demonstrated that although his main game is Formula 1, that he can really demonstrate his skills on iRacing and seems to really enjoy it also.
I think Alex Gillen in a similar position as well. Matt 2-on-2, definitely more time in him, was up by about 7/10 per second, but didn't complete the lap time there in P10 on a 1:19.1, so he could pick up maybe 4 or 5 further positions in the Oreo livery car. Still another flying lap. Just over 2 minutes to go in the qualifying session. Haven't seen anything from Kamikaze in the last 3 or 4 minutes, so Aidan Poll still holding the benchmark time of 1:18.1. Brendan Hyperstar improves by 1 position from 9th up to 8th. Nearly a 10th per second, over a 10th per second down on Aerotech. Here is Blueberry, who's been setting some really competitive lap times in this qualifying session so far, charging up to go once more, 20.8. Just a back-off lap, trying to get the tyres in a good working condition to go for what might be their final attempt in this qualifying session.
From what I understand, really difficult to get the tyres under any sort of temperature control. Track temperature is 54 degrees, I'm guessing Celsius, but I'm not quite sure. So very, very hot. And that does mean that essentially as soon as you start overheating them, you're fighting a losing battle. So Alex Gillen's got some damage on the front there, not ideal. He's clouted the wall and you can see the tyre visibly cambered, so I'm not sure if he's going to carry on. Struggling to even make the hairpin there, so not ideal, and still going for a lap though.
Yeah, interesting tactics from Gillen there. He hasn't got much longer left in the session, so maybe just thinking, well, I've got to just go for it. Can't really repair the car in this time. Matt 2-on-2 going very wide into the final corner as well, trying to set up his exit and blast up towards the line. Just over a minute left to go for Matt 2-on-2 in this session. I don't think that lap time was going to be an improved. Big cluster of cars as well in the final sector. Contact and into the back of Ancefopoulos. I'm not sure who that is spinning into the wall. Basic Ollie, in fact, it was, who was getting clouted in the rear. Both of them caught out by that, and that's probably qualifying session over for them.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Just didn't spot the car coming, really. They were just parked on the apex going slow. I think preparing the tyres for a quali lap, ironically, but that is not going to happen, and they will not have enough chance to get around again. Supreme TV, this is looking like a very tidy lap so far. Look at those sector times. They are on target, dipping to the inside, wanting the shortest line, and across line 18.8. That's a big improvement. P6 now, and that just shows the timing improvements that we've had here throughout the qualifying session, because that is only good enough for P6, would you believe?
Yeah, starting to see these fast times coming in thick and fast. Here comes Chairs up to the line. What can he do? Trying to find improvement. Few drivers in the pits that won't be going again. 5 seconds to go. Kamikaze, haven't seen too much of them of late. It's an 18.9. Cuts the beam with a couple of seconds to go. Maybe an opportunity for them to go once again. But here is the provisional pole sitter. Second in the championship. First in qualifying. And doesn't improve by just under 0.2 of a second.
Well, the 18, the 18 time that he had there was so quick that I don't think he'll be getting anywhere close to it. Shame for Ancefalosis there, really, because he won't have a chance to set another lap time, and it looks like Grand Prix is not on a good lap there. Had to back out of it, or indeed was on a warm-up lap and just didn't make it around, so they're across the line and will not be doing any more laps in the session. And it does look like, according to our timing screens, that everybody else has backed out of their lap so far. Still waiting for confirmation on that, as the timing screen does sometimes take a few seconds to update. But I'm not seeing any minus signs on the deltas at the moment.
No, I think we are finished, and from what was looking quite interesting in the first half of that session, Aiden Pole and Kamikaze trading purple sectors, trading purple lap times. In the end, the gap was over 0.3 of a second between the top two in the championship, who finished top two in the qualifying session as well. Blueberry, very good lap again, ahead of Alex Gillen and Basic Ollie, rounding out your top 5. Supreme TV in P6, ahead of Strauss and Aerotech, who is live at iRacing HQ, doing a good job to get inside the top 10. And then Sparks and Brendan Hyperstar rounding out your top 10. John, that was a very interesting qualifying session. We saw the improvements coming throughout the session, but maybe right at the death, we didn't quite see the drivers finding that little bit extra right at the end.
I think a lot of people getting caught out by that tyre temperature. They probably did a few warm-up laps, then really pushed it, and it just went overboard in terms of temperatures. I think we might have an interview here with our pole sitter, Aiden Pole. So, that is pole on pole. Sorry for the jokes there. It's too easy to do. I had to do it. But that must be really satisfying. 0.3 of a second. How did it feel?
Very, very satisfying. I will say that was definitely not an easy lap to get, so I don't know how reflective that truly is. I kind of feel like things just lined up on that lap, but it's satisfying nonetheless.
How difficult was the circuit in that condition? Because, sorry, John, because we saw a lot of drivers as the session started to progress, struggling with the tyre temperature, struggling to find maybe some meaningful improvements. Did you feel that was the case for yourself?
Absolutely. I think for me, it was a lot about pushing every braking zone back earlier and just trying to roll more speed through the apex, because braking as late and as hard as I typically do just does not work here. It is way too hot for that.
We know Kamikaze has great race pace. Do you think this time, a bit like last week, you have just that little bit of edge to push him over the limit?
I think the edge here is track position. Unless I make a big mistake, then it's very, very hard to pass somebody here. So I'm hoping that I can just kind of ride that wave. Honestly, I'm pretty worried about pitting. I have not pitted on this track before. I have no idea where it is or what the speed is, so we're just going to kind of hope that we make the pit when that happens.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you very quickly as well. Obviously, you mentioned the overtaking going to be difficult. Track position, very, very important. Being on pole position, does that give you that extra little bit of impetus? You're able to control the race a little bit better and manage your own pace and manage your tyres a little bit easier?
Absolutely. I think you don't have to push as hard in the lead in a lot of instances. And honestly, making a mistake in the lead sometimes can be beneficial, throwing P2 back into P3 and starting something there and potentially pulling away from the fact of having them fight. So there's a lot of ways that this could go right, starting from pole.
think.
We hope
That is,
that it will go well.
And yeah, John, unless you've got anything else, I think we can hand you back into the warm-up to get yourself ready for the main race. Congratulations on your pole position. We wish you the best of luck for the outing in a few minutes' time.
Thank you so much.
Well, pole sitter jumping in to have a chat. I think he hit the nail on the head, didn't he, with the track position. We know overtaking is going to be difficult. We know that this is going to feel like a proper endurance race. Mistakes are going to be punished very, very severely. And just keeping it out of the walls over the 51 laps or so that we're going to have is going to be a challenge enough in itself.
It's going to be one of those things where you have to set up and move multiple corners ahead, so you start to get the guy in front overheating their tyres, getting them offline, out of position. So obviously turn one, the longest straight after the longest straight, so easy to attempt an overtake into there, but very difficult in the braking zone on the inside, can be very dusty, so you have to brake earlier but simultaneously make the apex ahead, so really difficult. Turn 6 may be an attempt of overtaking, but very difficult unless the driver in front makes a mistake, and then Firestone turn 9 is probably where we're going to see a lot of people attempt the overtakes. I will not discount anybody trying it in the hairpin, but whether they'll make the turn after that is another question.
Yeah, 100%. How interesting do you think turn 1 will be in this Grand Prix? Obviously, in the first lap, it's going to be interesting to see how you can pick your braking points, but also if you can set up the run coming out of the final corner of turn 11, give yourself a really nice go at it, maybe to try and make a move down to turn number 1 later on in the race. I think that's going to be the corner where we're going to see, a lot of mistakes, but also we could see a lot of opportunities.
Well, let me put it this way. If you're at the front, let's say the first 4 cars, you pray that nothing happened bad behind. If you're in the midfield, you just want to survive turn 1, and if you're back at the back, you want to brake 1 meter later than the car in front, thus creating a concertina effect. It's going to be either super clean or disastrous.
Well, I think both of them will be very, very interesting indeed. And we take a look at our grid. Aidan Pole, we've just spoken to, just over 0.3 per second clear of the championship leader, Kamikaze, who didn't find the improvement later on in the qualifying session. Blueberry continuing some strong form, as does Alex Gillen, returning to right at the sharp end of a qualifying session, starting from P4 ahead of Basic Ollie in P5, his Creator Series iRacing debut, nestled inside the top 5. They're just ahead of Supreme TV in position number 6. Further down, lower in the top 10, Strasner, 7th position, alongside Aerotech, separated by just 0.02 of a second in qualifying. Will their race pace be as similar? We'll have to wait and see. And just inside the top 10, Sparks, alongside Brendan Hyperstar. Both of them have shown real flashes of pace so far this season. Can they continue to do so? Well, the track's challenging. We'll have to wait and see. Matt 2 on 2, maybe slightly out of position, had some pace to potentially challenge for the top 5. He goes from 11th alongside Chesnoy Gaming, who was a further half a second off the back of the Oreo liveried car. And Cephalosis P13 had a collision late on with Basic Ollie, put them both out of contention to getting a late lap in. James Early going from 14th place in the car number 50. And further back, row 8, if my maths serves me correctly. Grand Pooh Bear and Super Noodle Bagel in the midst of what could be a very interesting midfield battle. Got to try and keep your nose clean down into turn number 1. And then it is Els, and it's Josh Imuz on the back row of the grid. But they'll be looking to try and make up places. Avoid the carnage that I think will definitely be occurring in front of them.
Yeah, it goes without saying, this will be a race of probably 2 halves. You've got the first 3 laps where everybody will be going flat out, and then it becomes a strategy race where when do you pit? When do you push your tires a little bit more? Will we see drivers lifting off and coasting into the corners a little bit? It's really a race of question marks. At least according to the data that I have, it's going to be a 1-stop at least. But will drivers have to pit for fresh tyres? Will it be beneficial to do so? Who knows at this point? We will only have a few seconds to find that out, as we are set to get going racing in about a few minutes, if my calculations are correct.
Hopefully even less than a few minutes, hopefully just a few seconds, as we are gridding everybody, getting ready to go, sorting out the strategies and just preparing themselves for the race that they will venture into in a few moments' time. Top 2 in the championship, first and second on the grid, although they're in the opposite order. And what can Kamikaze try and make of this as we do kick off the formation lap? The championship leader in these opening stages, John, where do you think his opportunities are to try and get the lead and the track position away from his main rival?
He's been very good at race start. So knowing Kamikaze rallying style, you go for it in turn 1. He will 100% attempt something because it's not Kamikaze's way of going for just P2. He wants to be in the lead. He likes being in the lead. And that's where he can use his pace the best, so he will attempt to go for it if he's vaguely alongside, and I think Aidenpole knows that, so he'll be looking to keep the pace into turn 1, but the risks are so high here, with the bumps. If you make a tiny mistake, if you brake just 1 meter too late, you have to just take the exit road, and then you're back, if that's in the first lap, you're right at the back of the order. So risk versus reward, very high on the risk side today.
100%. Sometimes you feel like you need to drive at 90, 80, maybe even 70% around a circuit like this. It's going to be interesting to see. Will it be an exclusive battle between the top 2 in the championship as we get ready to get underway, rounding the final corner? Aidenpole starting from pole, Kamikaze alongside. We'll wait. Need to bolt it down into turn number 1, but I'm sure there'll be opportunities for overtakes and maybe a little bit of carnage. Should we go racing, everybody? I think that's the best plan. The green flag is flying. It is Aidenpole who gets away nicely. Kamikaze having to make up some free spaces down to turn number 1. We go down into the very tricky, very undulating, very bumpy braking zone, and Aidenpole's got a decent buffer over Kamikaze behind, and Alex Gillen has managed to sneak his way up into position number 3, but almost rear-ended, going through the fountain section of turns 2 and 3 by Blueberry, trying to gain the place back, and almost running into the rear of Alex Gillen. Fairly standard behind. Don't think anybody's come a cropper down to the tricky braking zone of turn number 1. There's plenty of opportunities for that to still come.
Sparks was really pushing it into turn 1 all the way to the inside, just late braking, managed to get it stopped and gain a position, I think, off of Strasner or Supreme. I think Supreme has dropped a position, or has gained a position actually. Aerotech dropping down a couple of positions in that start, I'm just noticing. So a lot of pressure at the moment as Chesnoid under pressure from Encephalosis here, as even in the midfield, everybody getting up to speed. I noticed while the green flag was flying for the first drivers, some people are still in the hairpin, so a bit of a gap being created there, as it will be Aidenpole defending on the first lap from Kamikaze, with Alex Gillen just getting a good run there. Blueberry going a bit wide on the hairpin and not getting a good exit there, but basically not close enough to challenge at the moment. Will Alex get a run here? A little bit too far back, I think, but it's just close enough to force Kamikaze maybe to the inside a bit.
Yeah, and Aidenpole will love this. Kamikaze closer to Alex Gillen than he is to Aidenpole out in front. If we know Alex Gillen all too well, he will fancy himself to try to get up in between the top 2 on the grid and just upset the apple cart ever so slightly. With the precision as we go through the fountain section, still nobody caught out thus far. 1.2, 1.1 seconds. The gap out in front that Aidenpole has managed to extend. Alex Gillen just getting a little bit unsettled over the curve through turn number 5. Big slide as well for Basic Ollie, holding position number 5. The rear tyres not going to be particularly happy about their treatment as we continue on. Alex Gillen still shadowing underneath the rear wing of that Ferrari of Kamikaze, but as yet not close enough to really think about making any real impression.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they'll be settling into the race. The fuel obviously a lot higher than in qualifying, so a lot of them will be just feeding the car a little bit more. Maybe some of them haven't even done a full race stint, so they'll be discovering the new limits of the car. From what I heard in practice, it's definitely a case of difficult to stop, difficult to turn in, but has a lot of power, so you've got to respect that on the exit. And you can see the drivers just stamping on the throttle as we have car 50 there of James Early just attacking Encephalosis, who got it all out of shape and nearly into the barrier there, just demonstrating how that hairpin is so tight on the exit. You've got to respect it, and I think has tapped the barrier somewhere else as well, as Encephalosis has dropped off of the back of Chesnoid and has been overtaken already by Grand Poubert.
Yeah, just having a little look over to the inside, James Early, but thinking better of it and holding station in 15th position for the time being. Like you said, has lost that little bit of time to Ches in front. 1.7 seconds now between the cars in 13th and 14th. Grand Poubert, in fact, the driver that sits in front of Encephalosis, who has actually left James Early for dead a little bit in that first sector, with nothing but 50 just struggling ever so slightly through the fountain section. You can see the different lines, people taking some flashing as well going on, as I think we're going to see an overtake being made. It's going to be Josh Amuse down the inside of Els, and that's going to be a fairly regulationary pass. Move up into P16.
Yeah, it's actually, I think Josh has made an error in qualifying as well. He was so close to the barrier, shaking his head a little bit, I think, there on the exit. Just not getting in tune with the car. We've seen a lot of pace from Josh the entire season, and so defending now as well from El Zinjani, who's only a tenth of a second behind on that apex. So, yeah, very, very difficult. But I would say with the VR on this track, it will be quite easy to see the barriers to... just get a glimpse of, was that James into the wall ahead? I think it was, just tapping the barrier. So that over a race stint will be more than enough damage to cause you serious problems. You don't want any damage on that left front corner, as that's the one that takes the most effort around the lap.
You really don't want to start setting a precedent as well, tapping the barrier each time you go around. You do it once, you do it twice, you do it thrice, and then you're leaving yourself in a little bit of a sticky situation. Bit of a choo-choo train starting to form behind Basic Ollie and P5. Spark, Strasner, Supreme TV and Aerotech very, very close in hot pursuit of the 37 car. Alex Gillen still fairly close to the back of Kamikaze. The gap out in front has stabilised ever so slightly. 1.4 seconds a gap between Aidan Pole and Kamikaze, with Blueberry trying to go with him. And then it's this scrap. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and probably 9th as well, with Aerotech just in the back of shot.
Indeed, it's a huge battle. I think basically just struggling to get the car up to the ideal operating conditions, or maybe overheating the tyres. It remains to be seen. Although, it must be said, every gap stabilising around 1 second mark, where a little bit of dirty air comes into effect. Obviously, being a GT3 based car, the regulations are slightly different for a challenge car, which is mainly basically an owners club series for Ferrari owners. So you can have a different mix, a bit like in the Creator series, of professional racing drivers versus. That is very big, nearly in the wall there for Kamikaze. Big lockup, very skillful to keep it out of the barrier. But look at that gap, 2.5 seconds now to Aidan Pole, pushing a little bit over the limits once again. So yeah, those tyres may be a little bit cooking at the moment, and Alex Gillen will smell blood, that's for sure. But yeah, just going back on the challenge series just for a second, it's a bit like Creator Series, where you have some drivers that are very sort of professional, up to speed, and then you've got other drivers that are just in it for the fun of it. So I feel like a great series to have as an addition to our calendar, and it certainly is demonstrating that these cars are anything but simple to drive right now.
100%. Aidan Pole still looking comfortable out in front. Kamikaze trying to make up for lost time, that gap extending by over a second. And Alex Gillen, who had also dropped to about a second and a half off the back of the 16 car of Kamikaze, now right tucked up underneath the rear wing of the lime green Ferrari car, in the battle for second, third and fourth, with Blueberry still nipping at the heels of Gillen in third. And basically just a bit of a concertina effect going through the final quarter, as you would expect. So long, so endless, and very difficult to get the car rotated through their spots. Just trying to check up ever so slightly. Still pretty close to the back of Ollie as we run down towards turn number 1, fainting over to the middle of the circuit. Probably not going to think about a move, a little bit too far back. You don't want to be taking an unnecessary punt, especially at this stage of the Grand Prix, slamming it into the wall on the outside and wrecking any chance of getting a decent result.
Yeah, Mason probably is doing the absolute best strategy for defense right now. He's taking a little bit hot into the corners, carrying a bit of extra apex speed, parking it on the apex, and then just denying any chance to get better traction on the exit. So just really making sure that in those slow corners where an overtake is possible, that you can't get close enough. And it's just meaning that, well, there's not a big gap in front, so it's not as if basically he's off pace. In fact, I'd say that they're just making mistakes and then just gradually catching up to Blueberry, for example. So we've got an overtake. I think Aerotech and Brendan Hyperstar battling there briefly. Grand Poubert falling down the order, indeed, or that may just be a timing thing, just trying to work that out. I think it was just a glitch on our timing screens right there. But yeah, battles happening to and fro. And Grand Poubert looks like he has a chance to get past as well for P12, so we'll be monitoring that gap as well. As I think we're about to come into... up the inside. I said somebody would look for it, but Grand Poubert just deciding that that wasn't a great thing to do. And look at that from Aidan Pole, 18.2 in the race. That's ridiculous.
And if you look at the group behind, they're pretty speedy as well. 18.4 for Kamikaze. That's not exactly slow. Alex Gillen 18.6 as well. So the pace is really strong out in front as we return to Grand Pooh. Still very close to the back of Ches, who's slightly deep into turn number 1. Maybe just affords the opportunity for Grand Pooh to think about it, but you don't want to be making a lunge up the inside into the fountain section. You're going to have to sit behind once more. They were embroiled in a battle on the previous lap, the drivers in 12th and 13th places, and Ches staunchly holding on to that position. They've dropped 5 seconds to map 2-on-2 in front. The left-hand Cephalosis a little bit behind, 2.5 seconds, as this pair find themselves in a little bit of no man's land.
It's interesting to see that every car is still keeping their lap times very consistent at the moment. Looks like the tyres are still in optimal temperature, so as Grand Prix does get the overtake done on Chesnoid, it does seem, at least according to our timing screen. So yeah, that will be a good, big relief as he can start to close up on map 2-on-2. I think Grand Prix definitely has the pace. As a look at this happening as well, we've got Supreme versus Aerotech here. So Aerotech just trying to put Supreme under pressure. Definitely, I think Aerotech lost out the most at the start, so they'll be looking to try and make their way back into the top 6 where I think they started from. So Ancephalosis and Chesnoid gaining battling. I think Chesnoid has gone for a little bit of a spin, and Ancephalosis as well. So just off of our cameras, they've rotated to the back of the order, so perhaps a collision there happening, which is very unfortunate. And let's go for a replay. So there's a car going backwards for a start. That's not ideal. That's Chesnoid, and he's what has gone on there? I can only suggest that might be some equipment issues. That was a very bizarre incident right there.
Looked like he had very limited control over his Ferrari car, which wasn't exactly ideal for Ches there. 23 seconds out the back of the pack, and that's what happened there. It's still a replay, so having it into the wall and then finding a nice little shortcut to get back on the circuit, but clearly having some troubles with his brakes, and that's what caught out Ancephalosis. Damage for a couple of drivers. Yeah, big effects after that. I'm not sure who the other two were that were having to jink all over the place and tapping the wall a couple of times, but yeah, that's what I can only imagine was an equipment problem for Ches, having quite the effect on the drivers around him, not least the ones that would have seen him slam it into the barrier.
Yeah, it looked as if it was all under control until the first collision, and then it's almost as if the throttle got stuck wide open and they had no control over the steering, and somehow managed to find the only gap in the barriers around here. I must admit, that takes a lot of skill and dedication to find that. And unfortunately, it does mean they come out right in front of the cars that were just in front of them. So I'm guessing perhaps, I don't want to say names definitively, but around like James Early, something like that. But they seem to be continuing so far so good. So not quite sure what's going on there. But yeah, very, very unfortunate for them. And it looks like they're still in pit, dealing with something. So yeah, my guess of equipment issue might be close to the mark there. As look at this, car 50 under pressure, James Early and under pressure from Joshima's doing the switchback. Can he get it up the inside? Yes, over the curb. This is possible now. It'll be a drag race down to turn 6, braking to the left. So far James Early has the inside line. Can he get anything done? James Early still on the inside, very tight, and as we can see from the helicopter cam, it looks like James Early will have to relinquish this one. Joshua has just managed to do the undercut, and up the inside as well goes in El Zindrani, trying to profit from this. It will be an inside line for El Zindrani into Firestone Corner, but it's going to be 3 wide.
Look at that, getting the draft behind Josh in front is going to afford James Early perhaps the opportunity to try and hold on to this position, but braver under brakes is El, still trying to fight this out. The number 50 around the outside, trying to dangle it all the way around the outside, but I think he's just going to run out of road there, trying to switch back into the final corner. They've just caught up underneath the rear wing of Josh in front, but James is going to have to concede defeat there. Ancephalosis also made a big mistake on the previous lap as well, down into turn number 8. Missed his braking zone by an absolute mile and almost slammed it into the barriers. Did very, very well to keep it out of the wall. Further forward, Alex Gillen has just been pocket pinched a little bit there, and I think this is going to be rinse and repeat of what we've just seen in that battle further down the order. Is there the space left? Really good racing between Blueberry and Alex Gillen, who's trying to nab that final spot inside the top 3. Gillen's lost a lot of pace to the leading duo, it has to be said, 3 seconds off the back of them, but up the inside, interesting line there from Blueberry and Alex Gillen, able to just hang that all the way around the outside, and for the time being, hold on to that 3rd place.
I think Blueberry just didn't really know where Alex was, and I think was expecting them to hold them a little bit tighter to the inside. So just playing a bit cautious. I will say Alex's pace has sort of dropped off a little bit, lapping 3/10 of a second slower than the two in front. So definitely the cork in the bottle at the moment, but very big defensive line into the hairpin, making sure that nobody can do the under-over on them. As Blueberry will be wanting to get past. They had the pace last week to fight with the top two, who was Aiden Pole and Kamikaze as well, as I think Strassner just got past Brendan Hyperstar, although Strassner, it looks like, has made a mistake perhaps in the hairpin. We'll have to wait and see. But that is them dropping multiple seconds down the order and still dropping time. Indeed, looks like they're still stationary on track as they're losing even more time, dropping to 12 now.
Not ideal at all. Once again, we said it in qualifying, this track can really bite, and when you get it wrong, well, you're going to be quite an unhappy customer. We're going to see what happened here. I believe this is Strasner. That's a lovely look at the street outside. Super Doodle Bagel in the pit lane, along with Encephalosis. We get to see the surroundings of the Long Beach circuit. Alex Gill is still under immense pressure from Blueberry behind. Ches into the pit lane as well. And we're all going to go for a fairly early stop in this race. Lap number 11, Encephalosis, Super Noodle Bagel, and Ches, who of course has had that equipment dramas and those equipment maladies that have befallen him so far in this race. Having a little look up the inside into the third last corner is Blueberry, just trying to put Alex Gillen out of kilter, right in the curves on the inside, trying to set up the optimal run out of the final corner to give Alex a little bit of trouble down this main straight and into the braking zone of turn number 1.
Well, yeah, this is very much Alex Gillen under pressure. I didn't expect this, but it's definitely just a pressure cooker at this point. You can tell Alex is going defensive nearly every single turn because he expects the challenge to happen there, missing the apex a little bit, and the gap still increasing. We're looking at a 4.8 second gap now to Kamikaze in front, so not ideal whatsoever. You can see the tires and the brakes just going a little bit long every single corner, although Blueberry nearly in the wall as well there. Just want to go over as well the view that we had earlier there. One of the first tracks, if not the first genuine street circuit, was Long Beach, and so it kind of became the template for all of the other tracks, but like seaside venue, generating lots of economy around races that happened here. And it was so successful that the second race actually was the Formula One race of 1975. So the idea caught on immediately, and it has been a success from there on out. So yeah, really, really good concept, and a track that we've said earlier is still an enjoyment for everybody to this day. What have we had around here? Formula One, we've had IndyCar, we've had IMSA, we've had Formula E, countless other championships. V8 supercars, if I'm not mistaken, at some point, or at least a demonstration race of supercars. Yeah, just Crater Series now as well to add the cherry on the cake, obviously.
Incredibly versatile circuit. Gap out in front, just starting to come down ever so slightly. On the previous 2 laps, Kamikaze a couple of tenths quicker than Aiden Pole. It was up to about 2.5 seconds. Remember, Kamikaze about 5-6 laps ago, just slightly late on the brakes into turn number 1 and leaked about a second, opening up to 2.5 seconds between Aiden and Kamikaze respectively. But that gap has closed and maybe just put something in the back of Aiden Pole's head. Kamikaze is still very much in this fight. Nearly 6 seconds, 5.5 seconds of gap. Back to Alex Gillen in position number 3, who's still being examined quite sternly by Blueberry as we are on lap number 13. You can see there, 0.2 of a second quicker, 0.3 of a second quicker, 0.1 of a second quicker, 6.5 tenths gained over the previous 3 laps. Aiden maybe just starting to struggle ever so slightly with his tyres. Was quite some pace that he showed us in the opening stages, and maybe that's just starting to bite him a little bit.
You can see it just from the way the car's handling. If you look from Kamikaze to Aiden Pole, the rear axle is just nowhere for Aiden. It's just sliding all over the place. Talking about sliding all over the place, defending from Alex Gillen, and still Blueberry cannot find a way past. It's closer this time though, so will they get a run? We'll have to wait a few seconds to find out. Maybe not close enough. Just Alex doing everything he can to make sure that they can't get a good exit out of the hairpin, and it's just enough for the moment. But a bit like Aiden Pole, that car is looking very slippery on traction zone, so it's only a matter of time in my opinion. Kamikaze again demonstrating that the race pace and the tactics is there even when the absolute raw pace isn't. So this race is far from over, as they're probably not even close to their pit stops at the moment. So We'll have to wait and see when that happens. I'm estimating between lap 20 and 30, depending on whether you do any type of lifting and coasting or whether you short fueled at the start as well. So a lot of strategies in the mix right now, but Alex still under pressure, but doing, I will say, a brilliant job at defending at the moment, as Blueberry getting a little bit wide and actually might be under pressure from Basic Holly more than attacking Alex Gillen this time.
And this can just happen kind of when you spend so many laps tucked up behind another driver. Just lose that concentration, that focus ever so slightly. Blueberry's just got to be careful sliding their way through turn number 9 and trying to get back right on the tail of Alex Gillen, taking a much narrower line through the penultimate corner, but a little bit wide through turn 11 means that they're not going to be particularly close to the back of Gillen as these guys will start lap number 15. The gap nearly 7 seconds now between Kamikaze and Alex Gillen. The gap between the leading duo is now just hovering around a second, and Kamikaze definitely now putting some thoughts in the back of Aidan Pole's mind. That 16 car clearly has the pace over the pole sitter at this stage of the stint. We could be in for a nice little tussle between the top 2 in the championship and the top 2 on the road very, very shortly. Blueberry still there on the back of Alex Gillen. I have to say, from what we've seen in the past few laps, Blueberry seems very, very confident in that car, especially under braking, able to brake a lot later than Alex Gillen. But Gillen just placing his car in all the right places on the circuit with somebody that has the experience and the winning nous of Alex Gillen. That is exactly what we would expect from him.
Yeah, definitely. I think very correct of you to say that. He's just got so much experience that he can just whittle away the laps, as we have a great view of Kamikaze's beard right there. Definitely giving him a 1/10 of a second per lap at least right there. If not in pace in terms of aura points, I guess we'll give him that, that's for sure. As Aidan Pole a little bit wide there. But I think, remember what Aidan Pole said in terms of the just characteristics of this race. He wanted to have track position, he's now got track position. And so all in his mind, all he needs to do is just sit at the front, make sure that Kamikaze can't have any overtaking opportunities, as we do have, is this Joshima's going for some moves? I think I've got the wrong car number here, trying to find it is. It is Joshima's, so guesses sometimes are correct, would you believe, in terms of cars, but he's not finding a way past at the moment, and James Early just putting a defence as well. And again, with GT3 cars, as long as you keep to the inside, it's very difficult to go round the outside. However, Elzindriani struggling a little bit at the moment, so very tricky to mount a defence when you're trying to attack the car in front as well.
Yeah, Grand Poobah's dropped them to the tune of 11 seconds in front. So Els needs to try and get their skates on ever so slight, because they could have James Early thinking about a move down into turn number 1. Are they going to have to go defensive? The answer is no. And James is just sitting behind for the time being. And from attack to defence very, very quickly, that's what you're going to experience here. Look at this, the battle out in front. Kamikaze starting to apply the blowtorch to Aidan Pole for the first time in this race. The pace of Aidan has definitely dropped off, now lapping in the low to mid 1 minute 19s when he was comfortably in the low 18s a few laps ago. Half a second slower than Alex Gillen, Blueberry, Basic Holly on the previous lap. So whether this is just management from Aidan at this pace or the tyres have gone, we'll have to wait and see how easily Kamikaze can try and get through, if indeed he has the pace to do so.
Yeah, looking at the traction out of the hairpin, definitely Aidan Pole's in trouble here. The car sliding, the traction control, struggling to keep those rear tyres in check. And I think Kamikaze here has the advantage. Look at the slide from Aidan Pole. Just got nothing. The tyres just, well, molten rubber, I think, at this stage. Track temperature still 54 as far as I can see, so really, really warm. But Kamikaze has the gap behind, 6 seconds there. You can see P3 of Alex Gillen just in the background, who's still dropping off the pace a little bit, but Blueberry not challenging them. And with that gap, Kamikaze can afford a couple of laps when he just lifts off the pressure and cools the tyre down, and maybe does some fuel saving at the same time, as we've got our first genuine pit stops, I think here from Joshima's, trying to get out of the dirty air of Elzindriani and trying to do the undercut, I presume. But with that strategy from Kamikaze, he can just cool off the car and then attack again, whereas the car in front, Aidan Pole, has to push all the time. Otherwise, he knows that Kamikaze can just go for it whenever he wants. So a very sort of duality of strategy here going on. But I'm sure Kamikaze will still want to be in first place.
100%, but he does have that little bit more flexibility now in how he drives and how he manages the rest of this first stint of the race. Aidan Pole moving to the middle and back over to the racing line down into turn number 1. But yes, I think Now that he's managed to catch Aiden, Kamikaze is just going to be feeling a little bit better about himself, almost running into the back as we go through turn 2 through the fountain section into 4. Now got to be careful, very off camber corner, and spit you into that wall on the outside. This is going to be some serious pressure for Aiden Pole. First time in this race that he's been under this kind of pressure. He just taps the wall going through turn number 5, maybe just starting to feel a little bit hot under the collar, with the championship leader really testing him down to the braking zones, once again almost pushing him through turn 6 as well.
Oh, this is just waiting for the move, I guess, from Kamikaze. He's got so much better apex speed on the slower turns that this is becoming a nightmare to defend. Just want to point out as well, I'm looking and I'm seeing a gap here strategy-wise as I look also at the track to make sure that there's no overtake going on while I say this. Kamikaze going to the inside, so I'll hold my thoughts for a second. Will he attempt to move? He's got it nicely over the curb here, but Aiden Pole knows what's going on. He'll take a wide line, both of them, towards the barrier. Will we see a pit stop? I think no, this is just a defensive move, so breaking the slipstream. But Kamikaze is a lot closer now. This surely is going to be an overtake attempt. To the inside goes Aiden Pole, to the inside goes Kamikaze, is blocked off, but Aiden Pole rejoins the racing line just in time to defend from Kamikaze, so at least through the fountain section I think he'll be safe. But Kamikaze applying so much pressure, nearly driving into the rear of Aiden Pole. This has a ticking timer on it until Aiden Pole just can't defend any longer. Just to go back on my thought, there's a gap forming for pit stops here, about a 50-second pit stop, and James Early in P12 is 47 seconds off of the lead at the moment. There's a gap of 12 seconds in front of James Early that one of these top 2 drivers could pit into and then push for some solid laps afterwards. So if the drivers know that, if they have a spotter working with them, they might try an undercut from Kamikaze.
Really interesting spot there. That is a serious gap that the drivers should be thinking about, especially if Aiden is struggling. Did manage to get it back into the mid-18s, but now back into the 90s, and he's really under some more pressure from Kamikaze, who's able to stay stuck like glue to the back of the number 12 car, especially through this final set to try and set up the exit through turn number 11 to give himself the best opportunity down to turn number 1. But Aiden Pole slams the loud pedal down for the time being, half a second. The gap between the leading duo, number 12 car, should be safe on this occasion. Kamikaze on the previous lap tried to make his move, but didn't quite have the overspeed really to make it stick. He's just going to have to bide his time once again.
Yeah, it's just going to... Oh, he's gone straight on! He's gone straight on into the runoff area. He's going to be able to make it back on track, but that opens up the door for Kamikaze, and I think he missed the apex there into the fountain section, not believing his eyes. He just put pressure on him, and there was nothing he could do. The brakes just didn't work, and just 5 meters too late in the braking zone, and he's nudged up against the wall as well, having to select reverse. He might get back out in P2 just. There is Alex Gillen right there. So Aiden Pole is back out in P2 with Alex right on his tail, though. Right there is the gap. So, yeah, we talked about it for laps, that the pressure would eventually get to him, and it has happened. And Kamikaze must be thinking, run for the win, Bullseye.
Well, you said it was a ticking time bomb, and in fact it exploded in a way that we probably didn't expect. A big mistake there from Aiden down into turn 1. That's just what happens. The smallest of errors around a circuit like this, and there'll be big consequences. And now Aiden Pole's going to have to deal with Alex Gillen. It's that ride underneath his rear wing as well. Look at the confidence and the grip that Alex has got in these final few corners, all over the back of the pole sitter. They're now 6 seconds off the back of Kamikaze, who is going to be feeling very happy with the way that this race has panned out. Lost a few seconds in the opening stint, but Aiden Pole's tyres really started to go off. And then the big mistake from the pole sitter, giving Kamikaze a free run into the lead of this Grand Prix. Alex isn't quite close enough to think about the move into turn number 1. We'll just nestle in behind the pole sitter, the car number 12, for the time being. Map 2-on-2 up into 9th place is Brendan Hyperstar making their way down pit road for the first time in this 51-lap race.
Yeah, indeed, that changes the face of everything, doesn't it? Because now Alex Gillen, instead of defending, although it must be said, Blueberry hasn't got close enough for an attempt at the moment. Now he's finding himself trying to attack Aiden Pole, who, I must say, does look like they're back on pace now. The car not sliding so much, although I take that back actually, the car still is sliding. Maybe the traction control setting is a little bit lower on that car compared to everybody else's, I don't know. But definitely some comparisons to be had between the handling of Alex Gillen's car, for example. But I'm noticing the times, actually, to be honest. Aiden Pole's still lapping the same lap time as Kamikaze ahead. So Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what went on specifically on that lap, but yeah, perhaps just the pressure getting into your head, it can take its toll. As Alex Ginnon, bad exit there, bad line through the hairpin, and Blueberry profit from it a little bit behind, but it is just close enough to maybe attempt a little bit of a feint to the inside and then move to the outside. We'll see if Alex takes the bait. He does move to the inside, but I think he recognises it's not close enough. And so the status quo continues, although Alex very wide, nearly clouting the wall on turn 1, and that will have sent his heart rate through the roof for a brief second.
Interesting to see what his heart rate is on the monitor that he's got on his stream. But yeah, dropping 1.4 seconds off the back of Aiden Pole wasn't helped by the fact that he wouldn't have had a draft down the main straight. And again, a little bit unstable coming through turn number 5. Blueberry's going to think about another opportunity to try and get up inside the top 3. We've seen this before about 10 laps ago. Alex brakes later, holds the inside, and Blueberry having to stay behind for the time being. Gets an absolute rocket ship of an exit though as they cascade down the hill. Alex Ginnon still with the high ground and still with third place in his hands.
Yeah, Alex is just scrubbing the front tyres, really. He's just trying to turn in and brake simultaneously too much. This isn't a Formula 1 car or an open wheeler in its broader capacity. You have a very heavy car, and if you try and turn in and trail brake like you do an open wheeler, you'll just overheat the front tyres, and then you create that scrubbing effect. And Blueberry, I think, is actually taking advantage of it, as although Alex Ginnon gets a huge exit there. So it will be basic Ollie putting Blueberry under pressure this time. So yeah, maybe just the tyres in that operating window for Alex. We've seen that multiple times this race, where different drivers are overheating at different times and are having to back off a little bit. As yeah, it's a little snap there from Blueberry on the apex as well, but they managed to keep it under control. As look at that, it's concertinaed up again. So very interesting dynamics this race, and nothing that I think anybody predicted in terms of the drivers. As Joshimus is back in the pits again, that's an interesting one.
He picked up a little bit of damage around there that needed to get fixed down in P15. Not going to have too much of an impact on their race so far. Aiden Pole's managed to recover the pace, by the way, as well. Back into the 1 minute 18s, matching the times set by Kamikaze out in front. The only trouble is he's now 6 seconds off the back of the championship leader, and under some severe pressure to try and get themselves back into this race. Alex Ginnon a further 1.2 seconds off the back of Pole in second place. Blueberry not as close as they were on the previous lap, but we'll just have to think about the green and purple liveried basic Ollie car sat just behind them as well. 41 versus 37. Sparks, haven't spoken too much about them, had an absolute lightning start getting up into P6. Has just been stuck in that train behind Alex Ginnon, behind Blueberry and behind basic Ollie for the past 24 laps effectively, but they're comfortably clear of Supreme TV, who holds 7th place at the moment. He's under a little bit of pressure from Aerotech as well.
As far as I can see, most of the drivers are doing 2 push laps and 1 cool down lap, and looking at their pace a little bit. So they're lifting off to the tune of about 3 to 5 seconds on their cool down lap to cool the tyres. And that's the gap that we're seeing ebbing and flowing between Kamikaze and Aiden Pole at the moment. The gap was down to about 5 seconds now, about 6.5, so just about the same time when Aiden made that mistake and had to rejoin. So it's kind of just a battle of the wits, if you see what I mean, in that they have to play with the gaps a little bit, try and make the other drivers think that they're pulling away to a ridiculous amount. But it's actually just a strategy tyre game at the moment. So that's something you can play with as a driver as well. If you notice the car in front is backing off, you can go for that gap, as we've said before. As yeah, very tricky at the moment, even in the midfield, as you can just get on fresh tyres stuck behind another car, and then you're stuck there for the 2 laps where you have the ultimate pace. So a very strategic game at the moment, as we're noticing a lot of drivers going long as well. As that's a train behind Alex Ginnon if I've ever seen one.
Gets a really good exit again out of the final corner though, and that just leaves Blueberry under the cosh ever so slightly. Less than 4/10 of a second, the gap between the 41 and the 37 car. But like we've seen, you really need to be about 2/10 of a second off the back of the car in front when you come out of the final corner to really give yourself an opportunity to make a move down into turn number 1. Good run though from Blueberry through turn 1, and once again, immediately in fact, Alex Ginnon back under the microscope from the 41 car.
Yeah, Aerotech very close to Supreme as well. That was the battle that we were looking at just before this one. So a lot of people, I think, struggling on the tyres at this point. You can see the car of basic Ollie just skedaddling on the exit a little bit, just struggling to get the car on power again. And with these turns, basically not being 90-degree turns, but they're kind of like a medium speed corner, but it's also bumpy as well with the nature of a street circuit. That's the worst combo that you can have for traction control and tire overheating, because you're constantly just skidding over the surface a little bit. And if you back off, you suddenly lose that 5 to 6 second gap that you need. I thought Blueberry was going for it then. Every single time they've been on the inside there, and Alex Gillen leaves the door open every single time. I just have that feeling it's going to catch him out one lap sooner or later.
Race leader in, so Kamikaze bites the bullet, and it's going to be the first of the leading contenders to make their first stop in this race. And just in the background, I think Supreme TV also diving down pit road, so that releases Aidan Pole to take the lead back. Alex Gillen, 1.3 seconds off the back of the pole. So it's still a bit of a concertina effect between Blueberry, Basic Ollie and Sparks as well. There is Kamikaze getting service, getting some fresh boots on that car. Will be allowed to go in about 40 or 30 seconds time, depending on how long the pit stop will end up being, if there is any damage there for the car in the pit lane at the moment.
Yeah, and the question is, can they come out ahead of James Early? That's the gap that we're looking at the moment. So this is going to be, I think, quite close. It depends on how much time they spend in the pits. As, yeah, they're definitely going to be very, very close. As Grand Poubert will overtake Kamikaze as well. Supreme might... So no, Kamikaze has just come out behind Grand Poubert, so ahead of Aerotech and ahead of James Early. So that just indicates that there's a gap there of about 5 seconds to slot into. So if Aidan Pole can play this one just another 1 or 2 laps, he won't have to deal with too much traffic. So I think Kamikaze was staying out there, just pumping in the laps, waiting for that gap to appear and just making sure with another lap or two, as I think around again goes Aidan Pole. So obviously Kamikaze may be short fueling a little bit in mind of what happened last time, where they were all on the same strategy and he just couldn't get away. I think that is a deliberate move by Kamikaze right now.
I think if you look at the gap that's forming as well between Map 212 and Grand Poubert, 22.5 seconds, they've been alerted to that. There'll be a lovely bit of free track to try and slot yourself into once you make that stop. Of course, you've got to get there, of course. Make sure you don't run out of tyres, run out of fuel. As Alex Gillen under the microscope, still from Blueberry. But I have to say, Alex Gillen done a really, really good job, I think, in this stint so far. Still stayed only a second off the back of Aidan Pole, who was comfortably quicker in the early stages of this stint. A little bit of battle going on further back. Aerotech trying to hold on to position number 11 as Grand Poubert making their way into the pits. That is going to be music to the ears of the likes of Aidan Pole, Alex Gillen, Blueberry, Basic Ollie and Sparks. If they can try and slot into that gap when they make their stops, they're going to have absolutely no qualms, because they're going to have no traffic to deal with.
Yeah, now that's a big gap to slot into. That has just blown the strategy wide open. Anybody in that top 5 battle can now come into the pits with free air in front of them and can try and chase down Kamikaze, although he's setting very quick lap times already. 18.2 that I saw on the boards just a bit earlier. He's had a bit of a slow lap there because his last lap hasn't registered at the moment, but I know he's pushing flat out. He's got Els and Driani in the pits as well. As it just looks like basically what you have to do is pit, use the fresh tyres to maybe undercut the people, and then try and hold them back as your tyres overheat sooner. As I think Basic Ollie made a little bit of a mistake there into the fountain section, just locking the tyres on the apex, having to V off the corner rather than do a nice sort of just circle turn around it, and not being able to stick on the curbs. And that's gifted a couple of car lengths there to Blueberry, who's now free to attack Alex Gillen. But it must be said, the times at the front now are dropping off. 18.7 for Aidan Pole, 18.9 for Alex Gillen. Basically the same lap time for everybody down to P5. Kamikaze only 19.2, so the tyres taking, again, that 2 to 3 laps to warm up like we predicted before the race.
Blueberry close to the back of Alex Gillen into the braking zone of turn number 9. Don't want to get it wrong, because Basic Ollie is still right there, and a mistake could be punished very, very heavily, with Blueberry falling out of the net top 4 in this race. Again, trying to take the narrow line as possible, but there's a little bit of contact there. I think Basic Ollie just tapping the back of Blueberry through the final corner. The number 41 car is going to be heavily exposed here down the main straight. Not tucking into the draft just yet, Basic Ollie, but now just darting over, trying to shepherd Ollie over to a position on the track that he's not going to be very comfortable with. It is going to be inside line to the 37, into the braking zone of turn number 1. A little bit of contact for the second time. A little bit unstable for Basic Ollie, but does manage to muscle their way through. Blueberry having that little bit of contact into the final corner. I think it was just Basic Ollie making a little bit of a misjudgment, tapping the back of the 41. Then Blueberry getting unstable and basically lapping that one up down to T1, moving up into third on the road.
I don't see any major damage on the car, but it's very difficult sometimes to spot minor suspension damage. As far as I can see, Blueberry hit the wall as well, going through well, I won't call it turn 1, but just the curve of the start-finish straight. So yeah, very, very tricky. You can see the car quite unstable there. Oh, hitting the wall again for Blueberry. That is visible damage there on the front. I think tapping the wall again on the exit of turn 8. So disaster for Blueberry. They're surely going to have to pit now, as they will probably want to repair that damage. Will the car turn in? It still looks like it's okay, but losing visibly a little bit of ground now. That is disastrous. They'll have to repair that in the pit stops. Also, that frees up Alex Gillen a little bit, giving a bit of a car length. And in the pits, was that Aiden Pole? Yes, I think it was Aiden Pole in the pits. It is indeed. So we'll have to wait and see where he comes out, as everyone else carries on. Blueberry in the pits as well, as it's just appeared on our timing screen. So unfortunate for Blueberry, that's for sure.
And Aiden Pole should filter out into some nice track position here. James Early was about 54 seconds off the back of Aiden when the number 12 car made their way into the pit lane. Alex Gillen now afforded the opportunity to lead this race for the very first time on lap number 30 from Basic Ollie and Sparks. Mac 212 also yet to make their stop in this race so far, and it should be Kamikaze that will take over what will be 5th place on the road, but of course the net race lead once Aiden Pole and Blueberry make their way out of the pit lane. There is the almost mint green car negotiating the final corner and blasting up towards the line to start lap number 30 of his race. I don't think we'll be seeing Aiden Pole anytime now. The gap was about 7 seconds when Kamikaze made the stop. We'll see what the gap is when Aiden Pole re-emerges.
Yeah, that was just Aiden Pole coming out of the pits. I'm not sure if you caught that on the cameras at home, but you could see him just exiting pit road there as onto the track he comes, and that's a gap of, is that 5 seconds? Am I correct in seeing that? That's incredible. He's actually closed the gap. Wow. Okay. We have to wait and see how the tyre warm-up phase goes for Aiden Pole, because we will expect them to lose about a second. They've lost about 0.5 of a second for the moment, but yeah, very good stint, it must be said, after that mistake. So maybe a late comeback for Aiden Pole here. We know that he has the pace, so we'll have to wait and see, as Alex Gillen, Basic Ollie and Sparks in the pit simultaneously. It's going to be a battle between pit crews as they are all stationary at the same time. Alex Gillen not up on the track. What's going on here for Alex?
Not quite sure there, cutting away from it, but they are all reacting to the punch thrown by Blueberry and thrown by Aiden Pole on the previous lap. If he didn't take any tyres, that's going to be a very interesting one. I imagine that's a bit of a blunder on Gillen's end. You don't want to be running tyres 51 laps into this race, but we'll see what happens. 22.1 second pit stop time. That seems fairly normal, so maybe it was just a... we didn't see the car go up, but he did have those tyres changed. We'll see where they filter out as well. The gap between Kamikaze and Aiden Pole, I think, has just extended to about 6 seconds now, as the warm-up phase for Aiden Pole just pushes him ever so slightly away from his main rival. And Aiden Pole, is he in the pits again? Yes, he is.
Oh, what's going on there? That's an interesting one. Interesting. I don't see any incidents happening, but we'll have to wait and see. Nothing on our radar at the moment. I'm perplexed.
Gillen's made a mistake. He's 3 seconds now off the back as well, so I wonder if there was maybe it's coming together, locking up into turn number 1. That's Alex Gillen making a big mistake there. That is not good news for himself. That's thrown him out of contention, potentially to finish inside the top 3.
Cold tyres out of the pit. Even more painful. Aiden Pole still with problems here, as far as I can see. Hesitating to get on throttle at pit exit. So that, unfortunately, has dropped him all the way back to P10 now, fighting for the lead, and now all the way down to P10. So it's a recovery drive as we wait and see what other further dramas await us. I'm sure it's the Creator Series, so something dramatic is always bound to happen. And the drivers have kept it pretty calm today, but we know toward the end laps of the race, drivers like to get a little bit argy-bargy. They're fighting for a position. It is normal. So I'm sure this race has a little sting in the tail, as Blueberry trying to close it in on Sparks. Will they have more of a chance, as I think that's Encephalosis coming out of the pit? So they have to go round a little bit. Pit exit is not directly on the apex. And we'll have to wait and see as Blueberry's still chasing Sparks down.
And Basic Ollie stumbled up into second place in all of that as well. 8 seconds off the back of Kamikaze, but with 3 seconds over Sparks in front, who's now getting the Alex Gillen treatment that Blueberry gave to the 77 in the first stint. 3 seconds now between Blueberry and Alex Gillen. Alex Gillen, with that mistake, finding himself in P5. Aerotech in 6th at the moment, ahead of Zoo Supreme. Then it is Matt 212, Brandon Hyperstar, and Aiden Pole, who's been through the pits twice in 3 laps.
Oh, Blueberry in the wall. Just clouted the wall on the apex, and that might be some more damage. Looks okay, but that will not be confidence inspiring. And I do want to apologise also if anybody heard anything, because I accidentally hit my microphone. And what is that? Is it a caution? It looks like a caution. A caution has been thrown, so that will be a safety car deployed. And that is disastrous for Kamikaze, as he has, well, built a huge gap, and the safety car hasn't caught him out of the pits, or has it? We've got a drag race right now between safety car and Kamikaze. This is riveting stuff. The safety car wins naturally.
Look at that, basically arriving on the scene as well. So that 8-second lead that Kamikaze had built up has now been eradicated, brings Aiden Pole back into contention to a certain extent, because track position not ideal. We saw how difficult it was to overtake. Aiden Pole going to have to try and make a run of it in the final 15 laps or so from P10 on the road. Gives Alex Gill an opportunity as well to reclose up to the back of Basic Ollie, to the back of Sparks and Blueberry as well, maybe just try and challenge to get back inside the top 3. But this just changed the complexion of things ever so slightly. Kamikaze didn't lead the early stage, as the back markers are going to file through, and now he's going to be the one just feeling the pressure in the early stage from Basic Ollie.
Yeah, we're hearing from the race control that the safety car was thrown out because of debris on track from incidents and needing to clear it up. That's the official line, with a hint, wink going out there.
Chez's front bumper was still strewn across the circuit when his brakes failed.
Yes, indeed. It took race control just a few laps to come to a decision on that one. Wouldn't worry about it, everyone. So, yeah, for Kamikaze, this will be just a literal heavy heart right there. But for Aiden Pole, it must be said, that gives them a little bit of a chance to just close back up and, mentally reset. It's been a very difficult stint, it must be said, defending from the race lead, then losing that with a lockup into turn 1, and yeah, then having to double pit as well. I didn't really get confirmation as to what that was. Maybe forgetting to change tyres as well is the only thing I can think of, but very unfortunate, that's for sure.
Because we didn't see any instant that Aiden had. I don't know if he maybe just clouted the barrier, which we didn't quite see, and had to come back into the pits because the damage was just a little bit too much to deal with. But that has thrown him out of contention probably for the win. If you were in Aiden's shoes, though, how would you be playing this, John? Do you think he's got to try and be punchy, especially considering that it is going to be difficult to overtake? Or you, maybe because we are bringing everyone back together, expecting some mistakes from drivers in front of you, you've just got to pick them off one by one when the opportunity presents itself?
So what I'm noticing, just looking at the pit board here, it's a 13-second pit stop compared to a 21-second pit stop. So that might suggest that it was just tyres forgotten on the car. I didn't look in the first pit stop whether they changed the tyres. So either fuel or tyres was forgotten, because that's a short pit stop for Aiden Pole. And in terms of just coming back up the grid, well, you've got to use your pace, really. Keep the tyres alive, which is the most difficult thing, but you've got to use your confidence in the braking zone to go deeper on the brakes to make them. That's a Ferrari without a rear wing. That's not ideal. The GT3 version does have a rear wing. You can see where it should go and where it is currently missing, and that will be very uncomfortable to drive. There's damage on the front end as well. So yeah, I think just use your pace. Go quickly into the corners, on the inside. Not saying dive bomb or anything, but you've just got to show drivers that you are a little bit faster, and sometimes maybe they won't fight it so much for position. Although, for a defending driver, it's very difficult sometimes to overtake around here, so I'd be making sure he works for it, basically.
Super Noodle Bagel, don't envy him either. Going to be driving a very slippery Ferrari in the remaining 15 laps of this race, and I think echoing that, it's going to be really interesting to see how Aiden Pole does play this, because we're feeling like this is a lost points with Kamikaze already with that comfortable lead in the championship. Aiden Pole was second going into this race, qualified on pole position, got to try and limit the damage now in the remainder of this race and try and keep the championship for himself as close as he possibly can.
yeah, just noticing, Supernova Babel, you got the name anyway, messing up the words as usual, but he's just been in the pits, and now he's crashed again, and is now going around, presumably not to get lapped, but, yeah, that's an unfortunate one. Maybe he has used all of his fast repairs, I doubt it, because he's only been in the pits 2 times. But yeah, very unfortunate for them if that is the case. Probably on cold tyres, very, very difficult, and probably just lighting up the tyres on one corner and into the wall. Very easy to do, sadly, around long position. That will be the problem also for these guys, is keeping the tyre temperatures might not be so difficult, but they get used to a good set of tyres again that are under normal temperatures. You can notice that not many people are doing tyre warming around here. That just speaks to the track temperature we have at the moment. And yeah, they'll be struggling a couple of laps after that, and it remains to be seen which driver can adapt best to that once again. At the start of the race, it was Aidan Pole that managed to get a bit of a gain before Kamikaze started reeling him in. Will we see that same effect again? We've yet to see.
Do you think that'll worry Aidan Pole maybe at the way that his pace just started to fall away as we got sort of halfway through the first stint? Obviously, Kamikaze came back at him very strongly, got the lead after the mistake Aidan Pole made. Do you think that might inhibit his chances of trying to get back through the field?
Well, it will be encouraging for the first 5 to 10 laps, because, you know, he had super pace apart from that, as Joshima's just making their way back to the safety car late. And everybody appears to be on the lead lap now, so that is good news for everybody racing here, as Joshima's just pushing the pace to the max to catch up before a safety car comes back in to the pits. But definitely for the end of the race for Aidan Pole, that will be very disconcerting. However, oh no, do not lose it under safety car. That would be quite embarrassing, but I think he's just having a bit of fun as well, must be said. Turn that traction control to 0 and have a bit of a drift contest. Yeah, for Aidan Pole, must say, just one last word, that the pace was only bad compared to Kamikaze. It was still faster than the guys behind, so everybody up to Kamikaze will still be at a pace deficit.
100%. You do not want to be crashing under the safety or under the caution period, and I imagine in that VR headset, I'm glad I'm not doing that. I think I might be sick if I tried to drive with a VR headset, but he's doing a very, very good job of it, and the added immersion would be, I imagine, absolutely incredible. Make the wheel-to-wheel racing stunning, you would have to say. A couple of people just trading positions under the caution. Obviously, that is going to sort itself out. Just getting caught out ever so slightly by the slowing down under our safety truck that you can see out in front.
I'm used on more story, more like on VR. I tried VR exactly once on a rally game, and I did all of, I think it was 5 or 10 corners before deciding that I felt like I was in a spaceship, and then lying on the floor for about 10-15 minutes. So VR suits some people, other people struggle a little bit more with it, but Joshima's definitely showing that it can be very competitive as we get ready, I think, for our restarts now, as Kamikaze leads the field around the hairpin, leaving room maybe for the only time on the inside. As you can see on that restart, he's gone really super early, I think, trying to catch everybody out. Aidan Pole was still in the hairpin, and I think that's what he's thinking about now. Break the gap a little bit, as Blueberry getting very good exit as well, be able to challenge Sparks, goes to the inside, thinks about it, but is heavy on the brakes. Alex Gillen nearly missing the braking zone once again, but Aidan Pole battling with Brendan Hyperstar for P10, and around the outside he goes, which becomes the inside. An aggressive move, maybe makes it work, but had to have the cooperation of Brendan Hyperstar there, and very respectful driving from both of them.
Millimetres away from the barrier there, Brendan Hyperstar. Very good racing between the two of them, but that was almost an airplane crash as Aidan Pole trying to get his way through and make up for the lost time after some strategical errors and the on-track mistake as well from the pole sitter down into turn number 1 that gave Kamikaze the lead of the race, handed it to him on a silver platter. But things fairly constant out in front. Basic Ollie about 0.8 per second off the back of Kamikaze, who did a very good job and did a number on Basic Ollie on the restart, was under absolutely no pressure down to the braking zone of turn number 1. And it'll be interesting to see now, does Kamikaze just try and stretch their legs? Like I said, try and just break the pack up ever so slightly. A second between himself and Basic Ollie, a further 0.7 back to Sparks. Interesting to see what kind of pace Alex Gillen will have in the second half of this race as well. Can he make his way back up inside the top 3?
you can see where Kamikaze was making the time up from Basic Ollie's perspective there on Indy corner, or Indy turn as they call it. I think Kamikaze was just pumping the accelerator a little bit to cause oversteer, and it just showed that Basic Ollie was just trying to get the car to turn while Kamikaze was already accelerating toward the hairpin a little bit, and just 0.2 of a second gained in that corner alone. So Kamikaze may be using that rally experience to good effect around here, where you need to make an understeering car oversteer to get any sort of speed out of it, as Blueberry deciding to use the unconventional tactic of skipping ahead of other cars, but unfortunately does not work out, so remains P4. They'll be hoping to remain out of the barrier as well. I think they'll just be trying to gain confidence for these past couple of laps, as Alex Skinner nearly hits the barrier there on the exit of turn 8, so a bit of a gap forming with Alex, as we've got an overtake here. I think that's Aiden Pole and Zupri. No, it isn't. It is Matt 212. Aiden Pole getting past Matt's 212 in that Oreo livery, as Matt 212's got damage. I think he might have clouted the barrier on the outside of turn 8, unfortunately. So yeah, Aiden Pole making up a load of positions.
Yeah, I saw Matt massively offline, and Aiden Pole, it was almost like the red carpet had been rolled out for a pole to get back up into position number 8. Got a replay going on here. I believe this is of the restart. This was Aiden Pole trying to get a couple of places, got past Brendan Hyperstar very, very quickly. On the money, Aiden Pole here is slamming into the wall. That is Ancephalophysis, and spinning round. And what has been a difficult day so far for the 24 car, it's not getting any better. Backing into the wall and going for the ultra low downforce setup on that Ferrari car is Ancephalophysis, who is currently in the pits, and I imagine that is going to be game over for the 24. Josh also in the pits as well, the 23 car. I think that could be 4 drivers out of the race here on lap 38. That may be 5. I think that's Grand Pooh Bear that slammed into the wall as well, coming through turn number 5. Very difficult corner off camber, very bumpy as well, and paying quite a hefty price for that mistake. Matt 212 under some severe pressure as well from Brandon Hyperstar, but I think this is going to be the mistake. Is it from Grand Pooh Bear? Yes, it is. Just lighting up the rear tyres. Round you go, 180 degrees, losing that rear wing in the process as well.
Oh, front and rear damaged there. Well, major damage as far as I can see. So that is so unfortunate. Very easy to forget that rear wing is quite fragile on these cars. Just held in 2 small places, so if you tap the wall sometimes, that's just enough to lose the wing. And yeah, just losing it over the curb, takes the throttle in, and just spins around on, even with the traction control deployed. And once you're spinning around, there's not much you can do. You're heading for the barrier. You can't really save it. The car's quite heavy, and so it just won't snap like a open wheel car would. And that, unfortunately, is, well, maybe game over. They're just trying to go round at this moment.
100%. Look at this. Kamikaze checked out in front. 2.8 seconds of gap, lapping in the low 1 minute 18s, matching his fastest laps of the session. Basic Ollie, Sparks, Blueberry all in the low 1 minute 19. So that is a big difference in pace in these early stages. Kamikaze, we thought he might try and stretch his legs ever so slightly, give himself a bit of a buffer to work with so he can manage the pace later on. I think that's exactly what is happening. Alex Gillen doesn't quite have the pace either of that trio in front in 2 seconds off the back of Blueberry, who is really sternly examining the rear complexions of that Ferrari. Sparks down to the brake zone. Turn number 9, but will hold station for the time being. Aiden Pole's pretty close to the back of Supreme TV going into turn number 8 as well. 0.3 of a second. I think Aiden's going to be thinking about a move very shortly. The gap closing very quickly. And there it is. We didn't quite see it. Oh, there's a bit of a car park going through the final corner. Is that Aiden Pole? I think he is facing the wrong direction. Tried the move into the hairpin. I think he's taking Aerotech with him.
Yeah, just a collision, and you can see the damage on the car. I think that is for Aerotech. So we'll have to wait and see. Goes for a... Wow, that's a sendy move. Braking far too late, I must say. At least according to me. And I think, unfortunately, that has taken out Aerotech and spun him around. He didn't really ask for that. He was just turning into the hairpin. And I think... yeah, just... Oh, hang on. Off as well. Is Aerotech again? Yeah, with the damage, unfortunately. I didn't see who he was trying to overtake there. Was it... It wasn't Matt, it was Supreme, wasn't it? He was trying to overtake, yeah, not stopping. The car just not stopping with the no downforce. However, with no downforce or no or damage potentially to the rear, it rotates easier at least. That is one benefit.
Certainly licked the stamp and centre. The problem was the stamp that he licked gave him a paper cut, and it didn't quite work out for him. Going into the hairpin, taking Aerotech with him, and pretty much ruining ruining the pair of their races. Still under severe pressure with Sparks. Blueberry is going to be feeling very frustrated in this race. He spent pretty much the entirety of it stuck underneath the rearing of one, maybe even two Ferrari cars in front. Alex Gillen 1.6 seconds off the back of this trio battling, still unable to keep Kamikaze and check that gap extended to nearly 4 seconds out in front with 11 tours to go of this Long Beach circuit. Supreme TV lucky not to get caught up in that little tete-a-tete between Aerotech and Aidan Pole that took them both really out of contention for some decent results. So he's holding 6th ahead of Matt 212. Brendan Hyperstar in 8th ahead of Aidan Pole and James Early rounding out your top 10 on lap 41.
Very intensive battles carrying on at the moment. Sparks trying to line up a move on basic Ollie. There's somebody there. It's Grand Poubert that has decided to go back to the pits. The car rotating on the exact same corner as before, turn 8. So something not happening to his liking, or maybe just the cold tires, to be honest. So difficult, as Aerotech is still in the pits as well, trying to repair that damage. But we could see something going on here with Ancephalosis, if I'm correct. Maybe a cork in the bottle for basic Ollie, although it gets out of the way. Lovely done. Thank you ever so much to Ancephalosis for that. Not easy getting out of the way of drivers when you're a lap down, but doing it supremely well, it must be said, as could this be a good exit. Sparks just getting the throttle down, but basic Ollie using a bit of that wheel spin to just get that extra meter ahead. We saw with Aidan Pole that this strategy works, but only for a few laps until your tyres decide that they've had enough.
Not really making any impression, despite having the draft down into turn one, and Basic Ollie is comfortable holding on to that second place. Not obliged to get out of the way, of course, the back marks, but Grand Poubert doing a very, very good job indeed. I think it's just brought Alex Gillen ever so slightly closer to them as well. In fact, Ancephalosis, not Grand Poubert, hasn't actually got out of the way of Alex Gillen as yet, trying his best not to influence the goings-on in this battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th that will rage on in the remaining 10 laps of this race.
Going back on the incident with Aidan Pole, I think it was just a bit of frustration, to be honest, that may have got to Aidan Pole. He'd been stuck behind, I think it was Supreme, for a couple of laps, and recognised an opportunity to go for it at the hairpin, and I think he sensed maybe that the tyres were starting to struggle a little bit, would be my interpretation, so attempted one move, and it didn't seem to go very well, as we saw. So that just demonstrates the difficulty of overtaking, as Brendan Hyperstar will know that feeling as he stares at that Oreo car, making him ever so hungry, including us in the commentary box at the moment. But yeah, no way past at the moment. Maybe if you offer Matt 212 an Oreo, maybe he'll let you past.
A bit of bribery, perhaps. Half a second the gap between Matt 212 and Brendan as they start lap number 43, and the number 10 car not really going to be in the same ballpark by the time we get into the braking zone of turn number 1. For the time being, Matt will be comfortable. Aidan Pole a second and a half off the back of this duo, but slightly late on the brakes is Matt 212. Doesn't trouble the apex of the of turn number 1, and is just under pressure, under the cosh once again, going through the fountain section. Brendan almost running into the rear of the 21 car, and another 2 to that, and you get Matt's name.
Nice one. Brendan was completely locked in there. You could see he was just so focused on following the car of Matt 212 that not a hint of emotion, not even a blink when Matt went wide. He was just so focused on trying to make an opportunity of it. But at the moment, the damage on Matt's car not really taking effect as he manages to get it rotated. As Joshua's in the pits once again, so perhaps some damage on the car. It's been quite an attritional race, as currently the bottom 6 or 7 cars are either out of the race or have taken major damage. And with Aidan Pole also continuing around with damage, as Ancephalosis just clouting the barrier there on the exit of the hairpin as well, not having an easy day as Ancephalosis.
Still tracking really nicely though as Kamikaze out in front. Lap 44, still lapping in the low to mid 1 minute 18s, when the trio behind are in the low 1 minute 19s. Alex Gillen's tried to pick up the pace ever so slightly just to try and get himself back into this battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, a second off the back of Blueberry. They've just started to converge on each other ever so slightly with the traffic that they're making their way through as we speak. I believe that is that Super Noodle Bagel in front of them at the moment that's just getting out of the way very, very nicely.
Looks like Joshua was, I think, getting out of the way Yeah, that is Joshima's getting out of the way, so good stuff. But we'll be battling with Ancephalosis as well. That will be for position, so that might throw a spanner in the works in terms of getting out of the way of the leaders of this race. Basically, just, oh, look at the traction there, just using everything he has to get that car out of the corners as fast as possible. And look at the effect it has as Sparks prioritizing the apex speed, but compromising a little bit on traction. And then you've got Blueberry just observing both of them and trying to take different lines. But I think just compromising their lines a little bit, as you can see once again, Blueberry just not being able to get the car rotated, and that cost them a solid 2 or 3 car lengths there onto this main straight, and basically puts them closer to Alex Gillen behind than it does to Sparks in front.
I'm trying to set up the run down into turn number 1, but if you do take it slightly too wide, you get that bucket load of understeer that just pushes you really wide of the apex. Then you get an absolutely terrible exit out of the final corner, and you're not in the same game as the cars that are in front of you. Alex Gillen has joined the party in the battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, but as we've seen, overtaking not easy one bit. He's going to have quite the job in his hands to get himself back up into the top 3 where he was residing before a little mistake once he came out of the pits with some slightly cold tyres, locking up down to turn number 1 and allowing basic Ollie Sparks and Blueberry all to take track position over the number 77 car. Supreme TV in a little bit of no man's land, 3.5 seconds of gap between himself and Gillen, a further 2 seconds to the back of Matt 212 in 7th, who still has Brandon Hyperstart, and now Aidan Cole all over the back of the 21.
Yeah, that will intensify for sure. I think Aidan Pole will be trying to just salvage some points from this one. Looking like at the moment Kamikaze will extend his points advantage, but anything can happen around Long Beach. Just a lapse of concentration is enough, and I think Sparks has taken the strategy of Basic Ollie now, just jamming the throttle wide open on the exit of the hairpin. Hasn't really had a good effect though, but is Basic Ollie fighting a losing battle like Aidan Pole was earlier? We have to wait and see. As a little bit of a lock-up, a little bit wide, and that gives the potential, if it was only just a bit wider in the Phantom section here, that would have been possibly a move for an overtake. As Ancephalosis and I think Joshima's has made a mistake here. You see him dropping a lot of time out on track, so Ancephalosis just got passed there as well. So yeah, unfortunate there. Maybe a spin. We'll have to wait and see.
Sparks really hustling that car, by the way, taking a lot of curve, trying to get as close as possible, stay stuck to the rear of Basic Ollie in front. Blueberry doing the same, though, looking menacingly behind that second Ferrari car, going down into turn number 8 when we blast down the straight into turn 9. Alex Gillen just in the back and shot a second further back. Are we going to be thinking about a move? The draft, not particularly powerful, or we retain that status quo. Ollie 2nd, Sparks 3rd, Blueberry 4th, with Gillen still residing in P5. The gap out in front hasn't continued to extend as much as it did in the early stages once the caution was brought in, but just reaching 7 seconds now, so that was very slow through the final corner, and that allows Alex Gillen to get right onto the tail of Blueberry in 4th.
Brandon Hyperstar as well, closing in on Matt 212. The gap is basically next to nothing, so we may see some overtaking opportunities for them as well, as Blueberry thought about it a little bit, was just looking, but Sparks are sufficiently late on the brakes. The problem is you really need a big pace overcut here, or advantage, to get anything done, as we can see the moves there as Aidan Pole missing the entirety of that front end. I don't think that will make the aerodynamics any better, to be honest. So yeah, unfortunately the experiment's not working to his favour there. Just an unfortunate incident really, because once you go in that deep into a corner, you're just looking to avoid other cars, and sadly there was a wild aerotech on the apex. You know, interesting, the only time that he races at iRacing headquarters is this will be an overtake. Aidan Pole going to the inside of Brendan Hyperstar. He left the door completely wide open. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think he was expecting Aidan Pole to go for it. Can he do anything about it? No, Aidan Pole gets the move done cleanly. And Brendan Hyperstar bizarrely dropping off the pace there for a couple of corners. Maybe the tyre's just trying enough. But yeah, just a recovery drive for Aidan Pole, and a second recovery drive now with a car that's, how would I describe it? Yeah, suboptimal.
Not ideal at all, but does make that move. Got an incredible run coming out of turn number 5 to set up the move into 6. You've got Ancephalosis now in front of Matt 212, who's going to get the Aidan Pole treatment, because the number 12 car still looking very, very quick despite the damage that they're currently having to deal with. There is an opportunity still to finish 7th in this race. 4 laps to go as we start lap 48 with this group. Matt 212, Aiden Pole, Brennan Hyperstar. We're going to make the move into turn 1. Yes, Encephalosis does get out of the way very, very nicely indeed, but Aiden Pole can get right into the thick of this battle between himself and Matt. Oh, slightly too late on the brakes though, going into turn number 2, and that just pushes him ever so slightly away from the Oreo car in front.
Yeah, it just looks like it's handling really poorly. I mean, I don't want to imagine the amount of damage they've got on the car, but it's not working to their favour for sure. Look at the amount of time they've lost just on the brakes. It can be even just a suspension imbalance. If you damage the suspension a little bit, you hit the brakes and the car does something weird. You have to lift off and then you go deep into the corner. So on sometimes, oh, Matt hit the wall there, I think. So not ideal. Again, he'll find out into the next corner whether he has any lasting damage. Hopefully the car doesn't go straight on. No, it looks like it does rotate into the corner, so lucky boy once again. But yeah, both cars battling with damage at the moment. As at the front, Sparks very close to basic Ollie, but it's going to be the case once again that it's a metre short. He just needs that extra car length to get a nose up the inside and get the overtake done. However, I will say, probably they are waiting for the opportunity now in the last 3 laps. Probably trying to lift off a little bit, save the tyres, and make sure that they have something left in the tank. We've seen it before. All chaos lets loose in the last 2 laps as Alex Gillen dropping off the back a little bit. You can see the car sliding a lot. So probably Alex just pushing. Oh, Sparks in the wall. That's visible damage for Sparks there. Unfortunately, that will put a little bit of a dent in his pace. Will he be able to compensate for that? We'll have yet to see, as Blueberry all over the back of him as well.
Yeah, it doesn't look too bad for Sparks, but that will just put his eyes on Storks ever so slightly in the final 2.5 laps of this race. Kamikaze, well, he's been a dreamland, hasn't he, since the caution came in, able to extend the gap as much or as little as he likes. He's done it to some degree. 8 seconds he's got over basic Ollie behind. He can cruise through these final couple of laps, pick up what has been another very impressive race victory for the 16 car. But the battle for the 2nd and 3rd positions will continue to rage on. Alex Gillen probably out of it, ruining that mistake down to turn 1. Means it is going to be a battle between Ollie, between Sparks and between Blueberry. Can Sparks get close enough to try and make an assault and attack in his final couple of laps? Not close enough on this occasion down into turn 1, and is just starting to run out of opportunities.
Just want to point out as well, Kamikaze's lap times. The lap 48th lap time was an 18.2, equaling possibly the fastest lap of the race. As Sparks clouted the wall there once again, just using the tyres and not being able to get any traction. You can see this car sliding. Blueberry all over that rear diffuser and just pushing Sparks round the corner. This surely is maybe an overtake. No. Blueberry goes to the outside, Sparks defends, and so they will have to try again another turn. Looks like they're struggling on the left-handers, but the right-handers are okay. Look at this again, just late on the apex, struggling to get traction out, so that is not good news. But paradoxically, for turn 1, it's okay. So the only corner where you really need to defend, you've got good turning.
He's looking a little bit untidy there and just needs to be careful here, holding 3rd place. Don't want to let that slip on the final lap of the race. Blueberry has been tucked up underneath the car for pretty much 50 of the 50 laps that we've had so far, but incredibly frustrating for the 41 car as this finally an opportunity to make a move stick and get up inside the top 3 spots. Slightly compromised through the final corner, not going to feel the effects of the draft ice, so going to have to hold on to 3rd place all by his own doing. Blueberry just over a 10th off the back of the 65, shaping over to the inside, going to have to make it, going to have to go the long way around, sorry, as Sparks defends, but it doesn't quite have the overspeed once again, and will have to hold on to 4th position.
Not sure if Sparks clouted the barrier yet again for the umpteenth time, but it looked very, very close. Millimetre precision if it wasn't a clouted barrier. So defending, I think Blueberry has 2 opportunities here. There are 2 left-hander turns, one of them coming up here where Sparks may struggle. Now it looks like Sparks has got it rotated. Sorry, it's the right-hand turns that he struggles with, so this one he struggles with. And again, a bit late on the apex, not being able to carry the speed, but Blueberry gets it a little bit wrong as well. So compromised a little bit, looking to just show themselves in the mirror, show that they're right there, that they could attempt an overtake. But will it be enough? I'm not sure.
Not enough time left, you would say. The time has gone by like a flash for Kamikaze, who has been absolutely outstanding. Once they got the lead, has not looked back, flashing the lights and crossing the line to pick up yet another victory in the Creator Series iRacing Summer Season. He's going to win it by nearly 10 seconds over Basic Ollie, who on debut is going to come through to take a very, very impressive second place ahead of Sparks, who just about holds on, with Blueberry falling away in the last lap. Alex Gillen shows some real pace at certain times, but having to settle for P5 ahead of Supreme TV. Matt 2-2 is also going to hold off Aiden Pole. What could have been for our pole to have some really good pace in the early stages, but a couple of mistakes, meaning it's going to be 8th place only for the number 12 ahead of Brennan Hyperstar. And James Early, also on debut, is going to cross the line in P10 ahead of Els.
Super Noodle Bagel waiting just as Elton Journey crosses the line there. So now we are waiting for Super Noodle Bagel. It will be quite a wait, 23 seconds, but they've been involved with a few collisions, bit of damage, spinning off and losing that rear wing crucially. But hey, look, they made it to the end of the race. That is better than some. And, you know, it's a very difficult track to complete. Aerotech will just not have enough pace to close into Super Noodle Bagel. But I'm sure for Aerotech, he'll be thinking, what could I have done better? And yeah, very expressive there at the line. I'd love to know what he was saying there. He's always talking about you know, what went on. Very analytical driver, and I'd love to hear his thoughts on that incident. As we see all of the donuts happening, as we love to see, as we see a view of the sea right there also again.
Absolutely lovely. Really fascinating race, wasn't it? It was a race of attrition at times, like you said. Very difficult to overtake, and you were made to work very hard for those moves. But once again, different racetrack, same story out in front. Kamikaze winning it by 9.8 seconds ahead of Basic Ollie and Sparks, rounding out your top three. Blueberry ahead of Alex Gillen, Zeus, Supreme TV ahead of Matt 2-2, Aiden Pole in P8 ahead of Brendan Hyperstar, and James Early your top 10. Further down, Els Super Noodle Bagel, Aerotech your finishers on the lead lap. Hancephalosis and Josh a lap down, and then the non-finishers, Grand Poubet had a few mistakes out there. Strasner and Chesnoid Gaming, who we believe had a bit of a wheel problem and went slamming into the barrier at about 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, that was indeed a very interesting one. It speaks to the drama with Aiden Pole that I'd briefly forgotten about that incident. So yeah, we've had quite a few incidents at the hairpin, which is not where I expected them to happen. But there you go. That's what happens when you have a race, is that unexpected things can and usually will go wrong. That's usually how drivers see it. But yeah, from Kamikaze, what a, well, dominant performance once again. Not in qualifying, but in race pace. He just seems to have the ability to keep the tires alive, to keep those laps coming. I mean, what was it? 3-4 laps from the end, he set a nearly identical time to the fastest lap of the race. So just supreme performance right there. And let's see if we can get him in for an interview. And there he is. Good timing from Gareth there, our producer. So, Mr. Kamikaze, is it just the beards giving you performance, or what? How do you do it?
Oh yeah, I grow beard. No, today it's all about surviving and don't do any mistakes. So yep, that was my plan today. So when Aiden got the start and got the gap, I told myself, okay, don't push too much. He will kill his tires, and yep, that was happened.
How in control of the race did you feel once you got into the lead of the race? You had the track position, you control your own pace, manage your pace from that point. How nice was it being out in front and not really being challenged by anyone either?
I was challenged by myself. Isa know me well, and I am my biggest enemy of all time. But yeah, of course you feel threatened every time in the track. So if I had 10 seconds, yeah, it's only a spin and you're gone. So. Always nervous. I have always shaky brakes. So take a look at my telemetry, and the last 10 laps I was shaky Stevens.
Was it difficult keeping the concentration then? Because I noticed, what was it, at lap 49 you set an 18.2 again. So obviously just everybody's struggling with their tires, with temperature and all of that, and you just decided you don't want that. You won't accept that, and you'll just carry on with your same pace until the end of the race.
Yes, I had my Delta bar on, so every race I do, I try to beat myself and learn from my mistakes. So I and Aero was in the same chat, and I told him, he asked me, can you catch me? You're 12 seconds behind me. I said, no, I just fight myself and try to beat my own fastest lap. So that was my goal for the last 10 laps.
You missed it by like 0.02 of a second or something like that.
Yeah, no,
Good
that's
luck
so
next time.
annoying.
The
Thank
win
you.
isn't enough. You'll have to try better next time.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna try harder next time.
How challenging was the management in that race, whether that was the fuel, the tyre temperatures, the tyre wear as well? Because we saw a lot of other drivers struggling, in particular as that race went on, with keeping the tyres in check, keeping them in a really nice operating window.
I'd start to feel the braking zones was a little bit scary, and the tire was overheated, so I extend my braking zone to around 50 meters. And I told Aira as well, you need to increase your braking zones, so you don't overheat your tires. And my pit strategy was try to pit 1 or 2 laps before the safety car, because this time we had a in-game safety car, and then the pit lane is closed for the 3 first laps. So that was the strategy, and we missed it by 1 lap.
Unfortunate timings then, but
Yeah.
you must have felt sort of your heart drop when that safety car was deployed, losing that lead. But was it difficulty getting back on pace with having the extra couple of laps on the tires?
No. When the safety car go, I know I had the good tires because I tried to keep them warm, and everybody else had 1 or 2 laps, and they will struggle to have the heat in tires. So we tried to manage to build a gap in this couple of laps after the safety car, and we managed to do that pretty well, I think.
Unless there's anything else from you, John, I think we're going to let you leave. Thank you very much for talking to us. Congratulations once again. We sound like a broken record a little bit this season. Kamikaze, brilliant performance from yourself. Go and enjoy it. And hopefully more of the same from yourself next season. Or next weekend, sorry. Next week. Don't know why I said next season. It was kicked out before I even said it, so he didn't understand what I said anyway, because he wasn't in here. I don't think anybody else is around to have a bit of a natter and a bit of a chinwag, so that is probably going to round us off. John, what did you make of the race? We thought overtaking was going to be difficult. Drivers had to work really hard to make their moves stick. But we did see some nice battles, and we saw, I think the best way to put it is drivers at their limit.
Yeah, well, I'm going to sound like a broken record again, because once again, this race had everything. We had mechanical failures of potentially equipment. We had mechanical failures because of driving into walls. We had locking up and losing your braking zones. And we had indeed some unfortunate collisions, it must be said. So once again, very tricky, but drivers had to go for it. Yeah, you can't expect them to wait around waiting for someone to make a mistake. But I think some drivers will have renewed confidence after this. They drove a very clean race. For everyone that finished in the top 5. Other drivers, a bit like Aiden Pohl, will be really struggling for confidence next time out, which is a very difficult set of races that we are going to. Legends Across the Licenses, if I remember correctly, is the name for it, which is the Legends car across all of the different iRacing licenses. So they'll have to master dirt, road and oval, and then obviously tarmac, road and oval as well. Which means that you'll have to be the best all-rounder. Oh, that has Kamikaze written all over it. Interesting.
Going to have to be very switched on, aren't you? Obviously, second special event of the season, multi-track taking place at the usual time next week. John, just a little bit to try and set us up for that. Well, what are you expecting from our drivers? I know you said that all-round abilities are going to be very, very important, but outside of that, I think we're going to see some really nice battles and maybe some drivers that we haven't seen too much at the sharp end, maybe fine-tuning their skills. We could see some surprise results.
Yeah, so from what we've seen in the Rallycross, where the safety car was the Legends car, very slippery on traction, only rear-wheel drive, no traction control obviously, but a very playful car, and one where you can attempt the overtakes where, the different racing lines are possible because it's a mechanical grip car, not a downforce car. Although I guess you could try and make it a downforce car a little bit, modifications. We're not suggesting that you hit the wall, but maybe it might work with that car. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. I think that Kamikaze might be challenged by quite a few drivers. We had, for example, Aerotech very strong, Ryan very strong in the Rallycross times as well. So it will be a question to see whether Kamikaze can continue his dominance, basically.
Well, we haven't got too long to wait until we find out. 7 days before we head over to the Legends Across the Licenses multi-track special event. That should be an absolute barnstormer. I am sure. Pleasure to bring this race to you, as it always is. Pleasure to jump in alongside John for this week as well. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for watching. John, any last words from yourself?
No, stay tuned next week. It's going to be more chaos and confusion.
Follow that one. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we will see you in a week's time. See you then.